Hey, and welcome to Chats with the Chairman. And my name's Carey Vermeulen, and my colleague, Kevin Pearson. And this is my first Chats with the Chairman, and I welcome you. So today we're going to meet some of the IICRC board members and most importantly, the IICRC Executive Committee. And I thought we'd start right where we left off with Kevin's last Chats with the Chairman back in September as he was stepping down as IICRC Chairman and I was stepping in as IICRC Chairman. So Kevin, this is your your first official meeting as immediate past chair. And do you have any I don't want to say closing comments, but certainly comments as you step away from the chair position, and anything you missed that you wanted to say?
Yeah, I do. I appreciate that. Actually, I think that we've got this wrong. It feels like I should be the one asking you questions on the show here. But anyway, no, being chair was an amazing experience. It's, as you know, because you've been chair before,
right?
It's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding as well. And I think we all, the board, the executive committee, we all do this with one goal in mind is, how does this affect the registrants?
Yeah.
Certified firms, our constituents? How can we create a pipeline of people, that want to have jobs in this industry,
right?
And they can learn, how do we create that track for them to go through and progress through their career?
Sure.
Because we all had that. We want to leave that for others.
Well, I think, and I'm going to ask the folks as they come up, because we have a lot of people on the show today that have a lot of years of experience, and like yourself as well. And, myself, I got into the industry as a carpet cleaning company. So, and that evolved. And I know you did too, Kevin.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how you started.
Yeah, I was a technician for years before I even owned my own company.
Right.
So coming up as a technician and then being able to own your own company, being able to sell it. I've done so many things in the industry, and you want others to be able to have that same opportunity.
Oh, I agree 100%. And that's why we do what we do at the IICRC, right?
Totally.
You've got some of the most passionate people in the industry. So, in closing, and I know this is not going to be your last time on camera, that's for sure. But in closing, I just wanted to thank you again, and
I appreciate it. And thank you for keeping the show going. It's great to see that it's living on. I appreciate it. You're
welcome, okay? Because I enjoyed the show, and I thought this is a great way to connect with our registrants and our stakeholders out in the industry, and just it makes it a little more user friendly.
Sure,
maybe right. So, anyways, thanks again, Kevin.
No problem.
Appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
All right.
I'm going to call on it's Joe Dobbins who I'm going to call on, and Joe is the current chair-elect, and come on up, Joe. Joe and I don't even remember how long we've known each other.
Many years.
It's been a long time, and we go back as IICRC volunteers, and we've served on the executive committee at different times, the two of us, over the years, way back 20 years ago, I guess we did too. That's when it really all started. And here we are now back again in 2022 doing chats with the chairman, which I am so happy to have you here Congress, my friend.
Absolutely.
We have come a long way. Have a seat. And so you are now, you've been on the executive committee for the last, what, 5, 8 years, 6 years?
I don't even know anymore.
Yeah, you're on and you're off. It runs together. But in less than 2 years, you're gonna step into the chairman position as I step down. And now, you and I have talked about that for years, and we always thought eventually, and now, holy cow, we're
you're following behind great people.
and it's thank you for saying that, because we have a bunch more great people to put on the screen. Joe, roll the audience back into some of your earliest times in the industry, because I know you had multiple sort of different businesses over the years, and of course you became a prolific instructor for IICRC many years ago, way before I did. But what could you run back through your years of cleaning and restoration, and you were a distributor and a school instructor? Maybe bring the audience up to speed on some of that history.
Well, I actually, since 7th grade, wanted to be a teacher. That's all I ever wanted to do. And then I didn't, but then I went into business for myself in 1982, and I actually was in the cleaning business. We tied into restoration, general contracting, reconstruction, insurance claims, you name it. And so, but I also had 3 distributorship locations. And I started teaching classes in the IICRC for that. And I felt like I finally got my passion. This is what I always wanted to do, was be a teacher. And so that started back years ago. And for 30 years, I was also a teacher while I owned my business. Now, after 25 years in business, I retired from business and actually became a property claims adjuster with a major insurance carrier for 2 years.
That's right. Yeah.
And so I just did the same thing I'd always done. I just had a checkbook in my hand that time. So, but anyway, that was another experience. And then I left that after 2 years and went to full-time teaching. And so I taught 30 years up until last week. Last month, I'm still an instructor, but I'll call it semi-retirement. And so I have gone into teaching maybe a week a month now versus 46, 47 weeks a year, all week long. But so now I'm doing some substitute teaching in the elementary, middle, and high school area, and I'm still teaching, but it's different. So that's what I am now.
Yeah, what a phenomenal history. Right? That to me, and then you and many of the folks we have here are the reason IICRC is what it is today, in my opinion, because of the passion that we all have, whether we're instructors or we're cleaning contractors or restoration contractors or inspectors. I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Joe, as a friend, because I consider you one of my closest friends in the industry, I really look forward to working with you in the next 2 to 4. We'll see how many more years.
Whatever it'll be.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Take care, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to call on our second VP, Mark Drozdov, now to come up. And Mark brings yet another. Hi, Mark. Good to see you. Mark, and I'll let you introduce your background in a second, but Mark brings a completely different element to the IICRC, coming from the industrial hygiene side of the industry, as I like to call it. Many of you have heard me say that, the industrial hygiene side, and because that's become and it continues to be a major part of what IICRC cleaning companies and restoration companies are faced with is legislation and whatnot that revolve around asbestos, lead, and mold, and COVID. Goodness gracious! And so, Mark, you've been on the IICRC board for a little while now. You're on the executive committee as second vice president, and give us a little bit, just a little bit, because I know you could probably spend it 2 or 3 hours, but just give us a little bit of your background and how you got to where you are today.
With pleasure, and thank you, Carey. It's nice for me to be here. I don't call this chats with the chairman. I mean, it's chats with the chairman, because this is my second appearance. I had a pleasure to be interviewed by the former chairman, Kevin, and it was a delight. And I have to say that being on the board, now being part of the executive committee, and seeing the workings of IICRC, there are a lot of different moving parts. And for all of us serving, for all of us volunteering with this organization, we all deserve a praise just as you are, Carey. And in addition to being on the board, I serve as a vice chair of the S410 developing standard for the infection control. And I also serve as a volunteer consensus body member of the S530. And of course, we are just about to release the field guide, the health and safety guide that I've been involved with for a while. And it's really a pleasure to work with all of the professionals and the depth of knowledge that I, get to witness of the IICRC members and registrants and board members is amazing. So I want to thank you. And, if you ask me how I even learned about IICRC, all of us nowadays are experts in hygiene cleaning, right? And we all know what PPE is, and everybody wants to be on the leading edge of health and safety. While in New York, where I'm from, we have this new mold law passed, and one of the 3 references that the law had, besides EPA, besides Department of Health, was IICRC. And I said to myself, I better learn about this organization. And I did, and here I am sitting here next to you.
What a phenomenal story. And look, I also want to, with gratitude, thank you on behalf of the industry registrants, but also as a friend now that we've become friends and board colleagues, for you got involved and you jumped right in and you're on this standard, that field guide and this standard, like you took it pretty seriously and took it up a notch. So, for that, I want to thank you very much.
And thank you, and I wish you the best of luck as the new chair.
Thank you very much, Mark. I really appreciate that. Holy cow. What an opportunity, to have all these folks from the executive committee on. And, in the coming year, we'll probably draw from that crowd too and bring them on for a full show for some of them anyway. So next, I'm going to call on another individual who I have known for 20 plus years and currently now serving as the 3rd vice president of the IICRC, and that's Lonnie McDonald. And Lonnie, welcome to the show, man. It's always a pleasure.
Let's not tell any tales of our crew this time.
Yeah, there's a good one. It's funny because we go back a long ways and like grassroots stuff.
25 years.
25 years. you know, and then we were trying to promote IICRC to the furniture and fabric manufacturers back in the late 90s and early 2000s. And we made some impact there too.
Sure.
And then later, yourself, especially on the leather side of the industry and in leather cleaning and the development of that class. I can't go on. I can go on and on and on, but I'm not going. I'm going to let you talk and talk to the crowd that we have out there. And you know, your history with IICRC goes back a ways too. So give us a rundown on how you got started in the industry and, well, just how you got to where you are today, sitting beside me.
Well, I cleaned stuff since I was a kid because I always hated dirt. I'm not sure why that was. Black grease underneath my fingernails didn't appeal to me, and my dad was a mechanic, and I gravitated to clean. And in the early 80s, I started one of my companies. Then it expanded from a carpet cleaning company to carpet and upholstery cleaning, then to leather. And I destroyed every piece of leather I possibly could to become an expert at leather. And then we created a leather cleaning product line, and then we created chemical cleaning lines. And we actually had two major franchise systems using our stuff. Started volunteering with IICRC, must have been 97 or so, and started off small, kind of looking at what was going on. Then Carey victimized me into working on standards and courses. And,
Oh yeah,
yeah, it was your fault. It was your fault. And I remember trapping Claude Bonvier and Joey Pickett, working on the leather cleaning task force, and they were having this trouble getting it going. You said, Lonnie, can you take care of this? I said, yes. So I had them all fly into my house, and they couldn't eat until we got it done. So, I mean, the course went pretty fast because both guys like to eat. So that was kind of the beginning of my volunteerism and holding people captive for IICRC. And it's continued to this day. I still hold people captive.
that's awesome.
I've served on as a shareholder representative, one of the founders of this shareholder organization. And then its representative numerous times on the board as treasurer, on the board as secretary. And now I have the fun, what I consider one of the many things I hadn't done when I was elected to, I went international. So I'm in charge of more countries than everybody else now. We got 40 representatives.
We have
40 plus countries. Is that crazy?
You know, that data, I hadn't mentioned, we're broadcasting from the IICRC Global Resource Center here in Las Vegas because we're having IICRC meetings. And I learned that this week that IICRC has representation in over 40 countries now around the world. And we're growing in that Australasia, as I call it, vicinity of the world. What a great thing that's going on. Now we're also broadcasting, as I said, from the IICRC headquarters, and I'm going to ask you just a little bit about that too, because I know, between myself and some of the other folks that have been involved over the years, one of our main goals was to get IICRC into its own building and have our own staff and have its own staff, and here we are almost 10 years later, and we're in this building that houses the IICRC staff, and you had a lot to do with that at the time. I think there were several people that had a lot to do with it, but you were pretty instrumental as well. That was a goal of mine and yours for many, many years. Others.
I think I'll give you my synopsis.
Sure, that's what I was going to ask for.
When a building came to my mind originally, Carey Vermeulen, Darrel, I was sitting next to them in a dinner downtown Portland. And they're talking about we should buy a building. And that's when KCI managed IICRC. And I'm like, duh, you should buy a building. Brick and mortar is the best thing. And I had that in the back of my mind for years. And then when I became treasurer, looking at the finances and looking at where we're at, I'm like, dude, we got to buy a building. So we got to buy a building. And I'm having this epiphany as I look at the finances and what we think we could do. And I went to Darrel, who was chairman then, and I said, Darrel, we're in the Heath Fund. I said, we have to form a mergers and acquisitions committee. He goes, okay. I said, no, we have to buy a building. We have to have a mergers and acquisitions committee. He goes, where are we going to buy in Washington? I said, oh, no. I said, well, look, I said, well, we had to buy in Vegas. And this is the first building that we looked at.
That's hard to believe.
There must have been, and Darrel can say later, but I recall looking at 6 or 7 out of the 10, and we just, every time we looked at a building, we just went, doesn't measure up, doesn't measure up, doesn't measure up. And now we bought at the bottom of the market. Years later, it's worth almost twice what we paid for it.
Right.
Just great, brilliant buy that board did. And here we have almost 40 captive staff that we get to appreciate and love. And it's really, it's more than I'm chucking up a little bit. It's more than I could expect.
Well, you know what? And I as a close off here, I just want to thank you again, because I know how passionate you are about this and about those 40 staff members that work for IICRC, you know. So it's nice to see dreams come true. And our good friend Darrel always has a saying about something, and we'll let him shed some light on that as well. So thank you, Lonnie.
Hey, brother.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on, and we'll see you next time around. Now, the next one on my list is the current IICRC secretary of the executive committee, and that is a gentleman who I've come to know in the past 6 or 7 years, and we've become pretty good friends. Robert Pettyjohn.
Nice to see you, my friend. Thank you very much.
It is good. I can't help but smile and laugh when I look at this man, because he is just so charming and so always so positive.
I'll get a picture of some of these girls in the background, okay? I love the show. Good.
You know, Robert, you've always got something great to say, and you always make us laugh, and I appreciate that very much. But you're also a really dedicated volunteer for the board, and you come to the table to work, and I appreciate that very much. And now you've been on the executive committee for 2, 3,
4 years, something like that. Yes,
4
sir.
years,
Right.
beginning of 4 years or something.
But Carey, what you're saying is really important. What we do has a major impact on the way people live their lives.
You know,
Whenever you see this sign, when somebody pulls up into your yard to get some cleaning or restoration done, that means something. That means that they're aware of the standards that we've created here at the IICRC, and that's huge.
it is. And, you know, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was going to be what I brought up as well. Now you've done yourself. You've also done, you have a cleaning background, restoration, inspection, pretty diverse background you have. But then you can tell us a little bit about that, for sure. But more recently, you got involved also with a large issue that the military and the military families and housing and some of the issues they have. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Robert? Because you got that off the ground, and I know you've got some serious thoughts on that.
Well, thank you for that opportunity, and you get me start crying here in a minute.
I don't want to.
But this is a big deal, because, like I said a while ago, what the IICRC does has an impact on the way people live their lives, particularly when it comes to cleaning and restoration in someone's home. I mean, if we write the standards, the mold standard is the IICRC S520, the Guide for Professional Mold Remediation. If some schmuck is in your house and he's not following that restoration, that standard, then he needs to go somewhere else. And this is really why? Because this makes a difference in the way people live their lives, Carey.
Sure it does.
And they could get sick if it's not done properly, or they could get hurt. And this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Cheech and Chong said, big dope deal. This is a big deal.
Oh,
Yes.
right.
All right.
You grew up in the 80s.
Oh, and there's somewhere in there. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I can tell, and you know what, that's one of the most important things that I never lose sight of in all my years is, what we do in people's houses and their buildings. It has an impact on the building itself, the integrity of the building, but also the health and welfare of those occupants.
Even cleaning the carpets, for crying out loud. If 80% of the soil is in that carpet and some guy's not vacuuming the carpet like our standard S100 says to do,
I know.
shame on them.
Yeah.
So this is a big deal what these folks are doing right now, what we're doing at the IICRC, Carey, as you know.
I know.
And you being the chairman now is only going to take this thing way into the stratosphere.
Well, I hope so, Robert. And I enjoy working with people like yourself. And we, as volunteers, we don't always agree. And there's 15 or 20 volunteers that I'm pretty tightly associated with. We don't always agree, but we always manage to come to some consensus.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right.
Well, and that's the way it was when I first started in this organization. I was approached by a couple of guys from the mighty Mid-South Professional Cleaners Association.
Right.
They're in North and South and Carolina, Georgia area, and all of that.
Yeah.
And they said, if you want to do this business, you've got to do this and this and this and this. And I did that and that and that and that. And part of that was becoming involved and certified with the IICRC. And thank the Lord, Lee Pemberton was my teacher.
Oh.
And that made a huge difference to get it to be taught the correct way the very first time. And that's the way these instructors here that you've already had here do it right the first time, Carey. That's a big deal.
It's a big deal, Robert. You're right. And I know as a group in the sort of the volunteer chain, as we might call it, of IICRC volunteers, we'll always do the right thing for the right reason. Well, I want to thank you very much for coming on.
I'm honored to be here.
We are probably going to have you back. We have a lot more stuff to talk about, and as we develop, so I want to thank you for coming on, and well, let's make a date to come back and do chats with the chairman again.
Let's make a date, you say, huh? Okay, we'll do that. We'll make a date. I love you, brother. Thank you.
All right, man. Thank you, Robert Pettyjohn. Now I have another, as I say, good friend, because they've all become good friends. And this is Scott Mitseff, who is the current treasurer of IICRC. Welcome, Scott.
It's down to the last 30 seconds to a minute, so I thought I'd pop in and say hi.
That's awesome. We've all become friends as volunteers here. And it's one of the things I like about IICRC is it's unified our industry in a great way. But it's also unified a lot of the volunteers as people, and more than just people, but friends. And we have become friends with each other, gosh, now for
Going on 6 years.
pushing 6 years. I was going to say 5 to 6 years. And, Scott, again, you have come from one of those grassroots backgrounds, right? In the carpet and upholstery cleaning industry.
Restoration too. After getting out of the military in 91, I got into the cleaning industry, started my own business, and quickly realized that I needed to learn my industry, my business. I couldn't just fly by the seat of my pants. So I got involved in a industry trade association, which is a shareholder of the institute, and started taking classes and have continued on my career of 30 years.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, because you are one of those guys that, and I admire that. You just, if a new course comes up or there's a new opportunity to take a class, bang, you jump on it, and you're there, and you travel and you fly and you ride your motorcycle to different places to take these classes. I admire that for you. Now, you've also taken on a pretty important role at the IICRC as treasurer. And, how is that? What kind of a burden is that to handle as a job?
I certainly don't do it by myself. And one of the great things about it is we have staff here at the IICRC that have really been awesome. And as treasurer, I have oversight and not in the trenches every day. And the trust that we have and the fantastic staff is just couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, that's
And,
so true.
We've had some audits every year, and I believe it's our 5th year now of spotless clean audits. And their accounting firm is also using us now as the model for other industries or organizations on how well we're doing.
You know, that is something to be said, because IICRC is always taught best practices. You know, when I hear and I communicate with others, I always say, what's the next best thing that we could do? And what's the next right thing that we could do? And that came from a previous chairman, that term. I didn't coin that phrase. I coined the phrase IICRC never sleeps.
That's right.
Right? Because you can attest to that.
I get
because
emails at 3:30 in the morning.
we get messages and emails and things from around the world, and we're sleeping.
Yeah.
Right? So, and back to clean audits, and IICRC has always promoted best practice, the next right thing, the next best thing. And that's how it's run as a business too. That's where I was going with that.
Yeah.
Right? We've promoted the best practices for our registrants and the people out there doing the business, follow the standards, like Mr. Pettyjohn said. Was IICRC is also running the same fashion as a business, and a really fine-tuned, well-lubricated business. Yeah, you've been a big part of that.
Yeah.
Over the years, because treasurers know small feat. And now you have also worked your way through up a trade association and come on as an IICRC volunteer, as a shareholder rep. So, you know, you've been involved at this level for many, many years already. And you're going to potentially be here for several more.
I hope to be.
That's awesome. Well, listen, I want to thank you very much for coming
Thank
on
you
the
for having
show. Okay. And I appreciate you too, Scott. And I wish you only the best. And I also, though, I look forward to working with you. We have a similar work ethic, and
We're both cleaners. We started out that way.
yeah, it's very true. It's very true. And when we work on projects for IICRC, we tend to take it pretty seriously and also agree on it
Absolutely.
most of the time, right?
Most of the time.
So thanks very much.
Thank you, Carey.
We'll see you next time. Awesome. Now, in a continuous parade of different people here, it's just kind of awesome. Because everybody's getting a little bit of camera exposure, and it's great for our staff too, our registrants, you people. You're getting to meet half a dozen people all in one day, or more than that. Anyway, my next guest is one of our newest board members, and Mark Cornelius, and he's also one of our approved instructors and school owners. So Mark, come on up. Great to have you on the show. And now this is your first official in-person.
Yes.
In-person. Sit down.
Thank you.
In-person board meeting. And I'll tell you, I know there's a lot of people coming into the office today that we're having meetings this weekend. This is our first opportunity at the IICRC to actually have this crew and in an in-person setting, because of COVID and having to do virtual meetings and use Zoom and GoToMeetings and stuff like that. I look forward to these meetings because we tend to get a lot more done when we're in person, So this is your first in-person meeting. What are you thinking? And what do you hope to contribute to what's your vision, contribution level, whatever you want to call it? for the IICRC over the next few years?
Well, Carey, it's been a unique experience. I will have to say that. First of all, it's been an honor and a pleasure to have been considered for the board. And, you know, basically it's just it's a learning curve as anything is. And so I've been sitting here for the past day and on some of the Zoom meetings and just kind of been soaking some stuff in. But there's just a lot of opportunity for the industry. And I just hope to be able to bring some of my background from where I've been and where I've come from, thanks actually to this industry, because I have been exposed to a lot of great people, including some names like Mr. Joe Dobbins and Bruce Deloche and Barry Costa.
Right.
So it's
some of the heavy hitters in the industry, right? Yeah.
So
now you also have a unique background that I want you to share with the audience, and that's some of your previous background, coming from firefighting, coming from first responder to being a second responder, I guess, and now industry trainer, education provider.
yes, sir.
So go back to the beginning, and how did you get from that industry to here?
Well, in 1935, my dad was born. Yeah.
Okay. You don't need to go that. You don't need to go that far back.
You said go back to the beginning. So we'll flash forward a few decades. At 13, actually, I had a gentleman that was wanting to hire my brother, actually, and he owned a carpet cleaning company.
Right.
And my brother had no desire. Lonnie said that he had an aversion to dirt. My brother had an aversion to manual labor. So when he said no, he looked at me and said, well, what about you? And I was like, oh, okay. And so at 13, I started cleaning commercial carpet. And I literally grew up cleaning carpet and doing cleaning, upholstery and whatnot. And then I got into a company that was just breaking into the restoration industry. And I got trained by some people who didn't know anything about what they were doing. And I learned how to become proficient with wrong tools.
Right.
And then the very first class I ever took was the carpet repair with Jim Carfield. And I learned how to become very good with the right tools.
Yes.
And I learned how to double or triple my profit margin by doing things in far less time. Then to flash forward a little bit further, started a restoration company in 2001. And the fire department, the emergency service stuff that you mentioned, didn't really get into that until later in life. So I started as a volunteer firefighter when I was 35, and then went into EMT and got my EMT stuff. And it's just been amazing how the emergency services industry and the restoration industry coincide with each other tremendously.
Yeah, isn't that a fact, eh?
Very much so. So a lot of the same disciplines and the same processes. But I have to kind of mirror some of the comments that Mr. Pettyjohn had to say. One of the things that has gotten me into the teaching side of it, and sometimes people think I'm being a little bit conceited, but I see so many people in the restoration industry out there doing harm. And I see so many people saying that they're doing it right, and they don't even know what the standard says. They've not even opened up the standard, and they've never even taken a class. And the thing I take out of it, what I enjoy the most, is when someone is sitting in the class and goes, oh my God, I didn't realize we were not doing it right.
Isn't that a fact? And I commend you for that. And I know that's the way you teach. I've watched you speak, and if I can say anything to the audience that is to echo what you just said. And Mr. Pettyjohn was saying earlier, is that, learn the information, get certified, follow the standards, and by golly, serve those people correctly, and take care of their buildings and create, healthy environments.
I'm going to quote one more comment.
Sure thing.
Be good so you can do good.
And there you go.
That would be Mr. Pettyjohn.
There you go. Mark, thank you very much for coming on.
It's good to see you back here in the States.
Man, it is so good to be here. You have no idea how I feel.
Been my pleasure.
Being able to come here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, it's Mark Cornelius, who's one of the newest board members. Now we're gonna go back to one. I don't want to say one of the oldest board members, but certainly someone that I have served with on the board of directors for about 30, just over 30 years, probably since 1991. And that is one of my good friends, Darrel Paulson. And Darrel's got some of his original tools that he.
Well, you said I was old. It's been around a long time.
Been around a long time.
You know, this is my first one back in the days. We always pre-vacuumed before we did the hot water soil extraction. I tell you what, these tools, and incidentally, if any of you or have relatives who have any museum pieces that you would like to bring down to the Global Resource Center, we would gladly, if you made arrangements here, except you can't come yourself, why you just ship it to us, make arrangements, call here. We're collecting some ancient old pieces from our business all the way back. And some of you know some people who know some people that have been around a long time, might have some of these things hidden away in their garage. And you know, by golly, when they pass on, you know, their kids just might toss those things out. So if you could look at some of those things and think about what might give a little bit of the history of how we got into the cleaning and how far we've come. So, well, it's great to be here.
Yeah. Sit down, Darrel. You know, you and I go back. I think I met you in 1991 and somewhere around there at my first IICRC meeting. And I was sat there in awe of all these people that I'd heard about and read about. And you got involved well before I did, even though we're close to the same age. You got involved in a much earlier point in your life, didn't you? And that history goes and remains among the longest serving people in our industry at the IICRC. Well, what's some of your recollections from those very early days when we were trying to get established and, you know, and like have an impact on the industry and create better lives and better jobs?
Well, thank you, Carey. Was always a worker, was raised by a farming family, born in North Dakota. Moved out here in 57 to California, was raised there. Don't hold that against me. It was way better back then. No, I'm not kidding. If you're from California, it's still great. But at any rate, back in the days, was always used to working really hard. And so about 1976, 77, started working. My mom answered the phone, knocking on doors. We went from gardeners, farmers, using my dad's equipment for gardening, to knocking on doors. We started a carpet cleaning business. We wanted to get educated. We'd heard about the IICRC. That's right. And we went and met Ed York. And we went to one of our first courses. So back then, that was mostly, I would say, Tom Hill, Ron Toney. Jeff Bishop was right in there too. And then I kind of came along right towards probably the end of where they're really served very hard. But right in there, I was in that first group of 5 or 6 and ended up being the chairman for SET before it was SCRT. Right. And became good friends with Ed York and had a big class of probably about 90 employees and 79 at the Ritz-Carlton in Pasadena. Wow. And Jim Holland was our instructor, a great instructor. And then I had one with Pete Consigli in 1980 and became water certified in 1980 and still friends with him. You know, we grow up with these people and they're friends. I know 30, 40 years later, served on the board with just so many hardworking volunteers over the last 4 decades. I'm back on the board now, and it's great to see all the growth and all the wonderful things that are happening for the Institute. Got a new standard over here. I just had I can't tell if it was crime or trauma, but somebody passed in one of my units, but we use that standard right there. And although I wasn't on that body of volunteers, I did start in the S100. No, the carpet cleaning was our first one. Yeah. And then it was the S500, and that was like 97, 98, I think was our second rewrite. That's right. And then we did the S520. That's right. So that was around, I think, 02, I'm guessing, somewhere around there. Yeah, in between, we did that applied structural drying course,
Right.
And I was the task force chair for that. And we set aside the mold portions because we just wanted to deal with structural drying.
Yeah, what an idea that was.
And then we went into applied microbial remediation technician.
Right.
And then that, of course, led to having a standard. So whatever we were doing out in the field for remediation or drying, our standards were complementing it. So it was a wonderful many years that have been associated with the Institute, all the way down to, having our location at an international airport here in Las Vegas.
What a dream. What a
It's a
dream.
20,000-foot building. We have classes and schools here, and it was a dream that many of us had for many years. Came about just 10 years ago this year, actually.
Yeah.
About.
I know we're close, right?
Yeah, maybe it was 9. Yeah, it was
Really
10
close.
is 23, if I recall.
Right.
But anyway, it's been a really good journey, and I've known you since you came on. I was already here. And
Oh, gosh.
what a great job you've done and so many things.
Oh,
Thank you for serving again. And
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
just from Canada, we're an international organization.
Yeah.
So
What
we
a
share
thought.
the love and the responsibility worldwide. We have a great Japanese group, and just from all over Australia, and many people have served from England for decades, and really contributed a lot so that we had some standards. They say that if we don't write our own standards, the government does.
Yeah, well.
And they don't always do it right. Now, I didn't really say that, but I've heard that. I'm not sure. Maybe they do it great, but we chose the other route.
Yeah, and I think that best represents our registrants.
I do too. And so we have a real good group of 65,000, pretty close to registrants now, and
Yeah, up there.
close to 6,000 firms, certified firms. And it's just been a great blessing to serve. And I look forward to coming back and do that chats with you.
Yeah, we're going to plan. I realized that today when I was looking at all these people, like yourself, I've known for decades, and what an opportunity to get a little bit more of that history out of these folks. And yeah, I want to have you come back as well and spend a little bit of time with me on a chats with the chairman, and all in an effort to, we want to kind of entertain the folks, but we also want them to learn, and we want them to benefit from some of the knowledge that we can share.
And understand our roots and how we got started. It was very humble. People paid their way. People came and served. They paid their expenses. They served on the board for many years, contributed a lot of hours. And I'm just hoping, Carey, when I come back and I meet, that the audience out there will take this populating our museum with some of those priceless things that your parents and grandparents have in those projects. And maybe we could show a couple of those pieces like we started out here.
Well, you know what? Actually, that's an excellent idea.
Why don't we
do that?
schedule it after the office calls and says we can't take any more things? Everybody's just sending us
Right. Then we'll notify.
So, and then we'll schedule.
Okay.
And then we'll come up and thank everybody.
Well, you know what? I'm going to take you up on that, Darrell. I think that's a wonderful idea, and also what a contribution that our audience can make, like you say. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
As so often.
We have a museum wing. We have some great pieces I showed you in the beginning. We don't have quite enough. Think about them before we end up in a landfill.
Yeah. Well, Darrell, I want to thank you so very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And by golly, when as soon as we see clear and maybe get some more of these relics,
That was my pitch. I think it worked.
I think it worked too. So, my friends, thank you very much, and we will see you. We will see you the next time around when we get time to put you on. Well, that's all of the guests we're going to have today. I know that here at the office we've got other folks coming in for the IICRC Board of Directors meetings this weekend. So Saturday, Sunday meetings, 8 hours a day. So we should have a lot more news for you as we roll through this meeting and come out of it. So look for the bulletin for the next chats with the chairman and who we're going to have on the show. And we're going to close out now with a couple of gifts that are going to be sent out to a couple of those folks that registered. And you'll be notified by our staff here. So again, thanks for watching. I look forward to coming back and doing more of these shows and from Las Vegas, IICRC Global Resource Center. It's Carey Vermeulen, and I'll see you next time.